Hi guys, today we're going to do another simple tutorial, very simple game but a bit more complex than we had before. So let's just create a folder, name it tutorial. I'm assuming that you have already installed JDK and your environment is ready to compile and run Java programs. If you have not done that, then you can go to a different video on this channel, and I think it's called tutorial 00. And you can install JDK and make sure that your environment is ready to run, compile and run Java programs. So we're going to do a game which is similar to a TV show called Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So question, four answers, and one right answer. We're going to do just basic one, questions and answers. So you can later, if you want, modify it, add some milestones like money, and probably lifelines and things like that. So we'll start off with creating our main logic file, main source code, game.java. And then we'll need another class, another source file, call it question, which will represent a question in the game. We're going to use two classes just to give you a feel for classes and methods in Java and how you might use one. Right, so the question, name of the file has to be the same as name of the class. So let's start from there. Public class question. It will have the actual question, so public string. Again, I'm assuming that you understand basic primitives and basic classes like string. So public string text. This will contain our text for the question. Then an array of string possible answers. So that could be 4 answers, 5 answers, doesn't really matter. And it will also contain the right answer. Now, as for the constructor question, it takes the question text and an array of answers. 3 dots just mean that you can pass as many arguments as you want to the constructor or to a method. In this case, it's constructor. This just makes sure that you can then extend the application to pass more than 4 answers if you wanted to. And this text is text answers. We're also gonna keep it simple and do the first answer. So we'll make the first answer the right answer. Right answer answers 0. So this line, so this statement takes the first element from this array and assigns it to the right answer. Also, after we've assigned everything we need, we might also shuffle answers. So that every time the question is created, the order of answers will be different. By less than answers length. We'll need a random index to the array. We'll do by taking math.random and multiplying it by answers.length. So math.random returns a double value between 0 inclusive and 1 exclusive. So which means that the maximum value could be 0.999 multiplied by answer.length, which will be in our case 4. So 4 multiplied by something less than 1 will never reach 4, which means that if we truncate it, so we'd take only the whole value, it will be a maximum of 3 and a minimum of 0, which is what we need. Random index between 0 and 3, because the maximum is 4 in our case. Then we assign answers. Actually, we need to store temporary value somewhere. So answers I. Answers with index I is assigned a value of a random index. And then finally, answers random index is assigned value of temp. This will shuffle our answers every time we create a question, so because it's in the constructor. And I think we're done with questions at this point. Let's get back to our main logic. Again, public class game. Let's make our entry point public static void main jake, which takes an array of strings. Right, now we need to design our game, as simple as it may be. Do init, so initialize our game, load resources and stuff like that. Then we'll have at some point our main loop, which will take the user input, parse the input, and then do something with it. I think that's it pretty much. So let's do our init first. Private static void init, and then have our loop. So what we need to do is to have some sort of database, which can be just plain text file, from which we'll read our questions in, which will store our questions for our games and future games possibly. Just create text file, call it data. As you remember, in the question class file, we designed it that way that the first answer is always the right answer, and then we simply shuffle them. So if we type question, what is 4 by 4? The first answer should be the right answer, so we'll type 16. And then we're designing a game which will have 4 possible answers. So 25, 44, and 24. So this could be our format for our database for questions. You could store them on single line and then separate them by a symbol, a character like a comma. But this could be a problem if you have this character in your question or answers. Like some questions may contain a comma, then you'd have to sort of parse them manually. So one of the solutions is to use just a new line for every answer and every question. And what is, I'm just trying to think of another question. What does R stand for in RGBA? Rocket. Yeah. We need to make sure that our first answer is the correct answer. Red, rocket, right, road. Yeah, two questions will be enough for now. You can add more, and then you can even make it more difficult by having 5 correct answers, 5 answers, and then only one of them could be correct, or 2 of them could be correct. So you can pretty much extend the game indefinitely. So yeah, now we need to load the file into the application. It's not actually very difficult. It's just using the class called files. Files dot I think it's read all lines. Read all lines from this file. So path get will return the actual file from which the files that read lines will read all the lines from. Get and the name data.txt. This will return a list of strings. We also need to import that. If you're using IDE like Eclipse or NetBeans, it will do everything for you. Just going to show you how to do it manually in a text editor. Import, I think it's Java new IO file. Just import everything. That should work. And also lists. util list. Alright, now we've got everything so loaded. What we need to have is a list of actual questions. Proud static array list of question. We need to import that as well. Might as well import everything. Alright, now we need to create those questions. So parse questions from list lines into the list questions. For and I less than. So if we go back to our data, as you can see, there are 5 lines associated with a single question: the question text, or the question itself, and the 4 answers, which means that we need to take the size of our lines and divide by 5. Or just increase the value of I by 5. Now we need to create our questions. Question queue, new question. You go back, you can see that it takes string, it takes a text of the question and then the answers. So first of all, we read the first line. Lines get I, and then we'll just continue getting lines get I plus 1, which delivers next line, so this one, which is the right answer, and then 3 more. Lines get and I plus 5 will return next question. We'll create our question now, put that into our list. Oh yeah, another thing, this read lines method is probably throws an exception of some kind, probably an IO exception, in case the file cannot be found or something like that. We'll just do a try catch block. If something like that happens, say couldn't read file data.txt, system will now exit. And then just exit the application. You could pass -1, saying that the application closed unexpectedly. 0 means everything went correctly. Alright, we've done our init, so we can now uncomment it. And we're now going to do our loop, which is while there are no more questions, basically. So size of questions doesn't equal or greater than 0. We also need a way of reading input. So we'll need a scanner, which is the easiest way to read something. from the terminal. Scanner scan, new scanner, system in. Int input can, I think it's next int. Alright, we've done that. Now, but before we read the input, we need to inform the user what we actually want from him. System.out.println. So take a question from question queue, questions, remove 0. So that removes the head of the array list, which is not very efficient because we'll have to move every single element sort of up by one. But we're not worrying about efficiency right now. System.out.println question text. So yeah, I made all fields in the question class public, so you can access them straight away. In following good programming practice, this should really be private, and then you need to have public accessors like setters and getters to access them. For the sake of simplicity, I'll just use public fields. System.out.println text now four possible answers, which is for less than q answers length. So answers that length will deliver us the length of the array of questions. So whether there are 5 questions or 4 questions, print all of them. Actually, print the number of the question first, which we'll need to take from the user, and then the actual question. Finally, we take the input. We then want to compare the input with the right answer. So if q, actually first of all we need to check whether the input is in the valid range. So if input is less than 0 or input is greater than q that answers length -1. Because if you put length here, it will be 4. So basically it will say that 4 is allowed, but because indices to an array start from 0, we have to subtract 1 from the length. Input, so yeah, if input is less than 0 or greater than length -1, then it's invalid. Say something like input is invalid. And then you can either exit with different code, or you can just do a continue and then show next question. I'll leave it to you, modify. So yeah, at this point input is valid, so we can now start comparing right answer q, right answer equals. Because string is a class, you cannot do a double equal sign like this. You have to use dot equals method to compare the literal strings. Equals q answers with an index of input, because we checked that input is valid, so there will be no exceptions like index out of bound exception, things like that. So if right answer is, so basically if the user has typed the right answer, then print line right or correct or something. else. Wrong. I think that should do it. Uncomment that. Let's go compile it. Hopefully we haven't made any syntax errors. CD, where is it? Desktop. CD tutorial. You can compile them separately, just typing both of the names like that, game.java and question.java, or you can use an asterisk sign and .java. So basically what's it saying, compile, find everything that ends with .java and then compile it. Right, we've missed out something. Yes, a bracket. Right, there we go. Now it created .class files, which are the bytecode, Java bytecode files, which we can now run. Java game. What is 4x4? As you can see, it now shuffled the answers, so the first answer is not always the right answer now. 3. What does R stand for? Now let's try something different and say road. Yep, wrong. So basically now you've got a game which can test you for the questions which it reads from a file. So we've covered quite a lot actually. We've covered how to read from a file, how to parse them to our own data structure in the application, how to do basic game design, which is usually init and loop most of the time. Doesn't matter really what kind of game you're designing, just the actual init and loop sizes differ. What else? Well, you can then add more questions in there, and you can even test yourself, I don't know, for an exam or something. I think that's it for now. You can also modify it to have to take more questions. I mean more answers. You'll have to modify this 5 as well, because you'll have more lines per question in the data.txt. And hopefully you've enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. And hopefully I can make more of these. And again, hopefully it's useful.